Hello and welcome to this edition of Phillies Talk. It's the Phillies Talk Podcast for December. Hello everyone. Welcome to one of the longest running independent Phillies podcasts on the internet. And on this edition, we're going to be talking a whole lot about the NL East for 2017, some things that interests in that division, of course, and I'll be joined by my good friend and co-host of the Baseball Talk radio show, Gary Mack, as he had me on his independent show for the New York Mets called Mets Musings just the other day. And thanks to Bo there from YouTube for the intro music for today's show. I want to take this time to wish everyone a very happy holiday, Merry Christmas, and a very happy New Year for the start of 2017. And we led in this broadcast with the little holiday bells, and wow, I really love the sound of holiday bells. As you get into the holiday season, you get the cold weather out there, some smell of fireplaces burning, maybe some chestnuts roasting, depending on where you live. Things like that just really makes the holiday season complete. Well, looking back at what the Phillies done for the winter meetings in 2016 here, just wrapped up a couple of days ago, as I'm doing this podcast in mid-December. Well, the Phillies didn't do too much for the hot stove. They weren't expected to, and they really didn't. No big surprise there. They're not going to splash out on big acquisitions. You know, they weren't expected to. And there was a team that did. They picked up a guy off of the Washington Nationals for no apparent reason out in Colorado, gave him a 5-year contract, and all the press could write about is why. So I guess the Phillies didn't want to end up like that. You know, they're not really a team that's supposed to be in contention by any means for 2017. And, of course, that player I was referring to is Ian Desmond, who, was an important part of that Washington Nationals team. But maybe the Colorado Rockies have a different type of mantra out there. Start with a guy that might be able to give you a spark and build from there, maybe. Maybe he'll inspire some greater play from that team. Colorado Rockies are very much like the Phillies. They're sort of a mirror type of team. Haven't really done much over the past few years, as have the Phillies, constantly seeming like they're in a rebuild mode. But maybe something like this is going to spark a little more attention out there in Colorado, and that one addition of one player could really do that. The Phillies chose to play it very safely for 2017. They do have a young team that is still gelling together, learning to play this game of baseball. It's kind of silly to say that when they're in their mid-20s, and you would assume they already know the game of baseball, but they're continually learning. And that's what I think the Phillies have this year to do. They have to see if this young group is going to gel together and going to pick one another up and rally around one another and, find some offense for this team, because that's what they desperately needed last year. They never did find it. They were mired at the bottom of the league just about all year for batting average, runs scored, things like that. Things that win you ball games. Got to score more runs than the other guy, that's for sure. Well, that's the talk from general management anyway. They want to give this team, this younger team, another try for 2017, and some have described it as a sink or swim type of season for some of these players, and I hate to look at it in those terms. The Phillies used to bring a guy up, and they'd have some stronger players in other positions, so it wouldn't be immediate that they needed a player to pick it up and not necessarily carry the team, but contribute to the team in a big way. Now, all of a sudden, for 2017, it seems like this is your chance, either sink or swim. Depending on what you do this year is probably what the Phillies may be looking at for their next season already, and we're jumping ahead to 2018. A little unfair to do that, but don't try to put too much pressure on a younger player. I know some of these players have only been on a major league team for 2 years or so full-time. And some of the players, we have to look at it, with real optimism, and other players we have to look at, they're good players, but they're just not everyday players to carry on a major league team. And that's what I think the Phillies management is going to have to get down and look at. They're going to have to make tough decisions, whether they want to add the seasoned veteran in certain spots. Right now, it makes no sense in a certain respect to stock the team with higher paid players, a team that hasn't really gone anywhere, but like the Rockies did, they're taking a chance. They're getting a little spark, maybe getting some fan interest into this team, and that's another important thing. The last couple of years for Phillies fans have been very, very bad years. I've been reading some of the commentary on line here with certain stories that are released from the Phillies and written about the Phillies. And basically, a lot of the comments are saying that these people can't understand why the Phillies aren't going out and just getting some better hitters. They seems easy enough to do. And, of course, with Howie Kendrick, they'll add a veteran bat to the team out in left field for 2017. But maybe Howie Kendrick's time has come and gone. The Dodgers were all too happy to part with him. And certainly this is a one-year deal for him, so it's not like he's going to be hanging around Philadelphia for a long time. He is 33. He'll be 34 in mid-July. But maybe a guy like Howie Kendrick can spark the Phillies. He's not, that big of a major league star. Take a look at some of his numbers from last year. Batting average was .255. He had 96 strikeouts, 40 RBIs, and only 8 home runs. And that was in 146 games. So Kendrick not having a good year last year. Of course, he was with the Los Angeles Angels for many seasons, all through his 20s up until the age of 30. Stayed with the Angels. And then they dealt him out to the LA Dodgers for 2 seasons, the last 2 years. And Kendrick is only a one-year All-Star player. He made the All-Star team back in 2011 with the Angels. That year, he had 63 RBIs and 18 home runs. So he did have a little power at some point in his career. That was his career high so far for home runs, 18 in a season. But other than that, he really has been a player that's been very much under the radar for the past several years. Not really inspiring too great of play. And, it's interesting. I had to look at what he's made to date. And a ball player like him is a $50 million ball player over his career. It's amazing that, a lot of these ball players anymore are making a great career with a lot of money, and they're really not all that good. It's kind of amazing. Well, I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to listen to some words from our sponsors, and I'd like to invite you guys out there to listen to the Phillies Talk Podcast and check out baseballtalkradio.com. It's the home of great baseball radio talk shows, over about 35 right now in the network, all over the league and all over the world. You can listen to some Japanese baseball talk and different shows from all over the world. So check it out, baseballtalkradio.com.
Hi, this is Farley
and Mark from Baseball PhD.
Thanks for listening to BaseballPodcast.net.
Up next, another great episode of Phillies Talk.
Hi, this is Gary Matthews. You're listening to Fighting Phillies Talk Podcast.
Brewtown Sports is your source for Brewers news and notes. Join Mr. Brewtown as he keeps you up to date on all the happenings of your Milwaukee Brewers and Major League Baseball. Follow the show on Facebook and Twitter, Brewtown Sports. Listen 24/7 at BrewtownSports.podomatic.com.
Hi, this is Gary Mack of Mets Musings, and you're listening to my good friend Rich Baxter on Phillies Talk, right here on BaseballTalkRadio.com, the home of great baseball talk shows.
And welcome back to this edition of Phillies Talk Podcast. Well, we went into the break talking a little bit about how the 2017 season may go. And, of course, the wintertime is always a time for optimism with the baseball team. As we get started into a new year, we start to think of new things that the team can do, new ways that they'll be doing it. And, of course, it's always a good time for plenty of optimism. So we're going to try to keep this show on an optimistic theme for this show. It's probably our last podcast for 2016. And I just wanted to recap a very sad event that happened in 2016 for me personally, of course, is the passing of my longtime co-host, Jim Mulry. And I wanted to wish his family a very happy holiday season, a Merry Christmas, and a very happy New Year. I know holiday time is a tough time when you lose people that you love in your life, but always try to remember that they're there near you, they're watching over you, they're looking, they're seeing everything, and I just wanted to wish his family a very happy holiday season as well this year. And again, Jimmy, this is for you. The rest of these podcasts going forward for Phillies Talk, all dedicated to your memory. So that being said, we're going to get into some 2017 NL East talk. I was a guest on my good buddy Gary McDonald's show, Mets Musings, the other evening. He was kind enough to have me on the program for his holiday special, in which he really went overboard in picking some nice gifts out there for his fellow Mets fans. So give that a listen over at MetsMusings.com as well. He's got a great show there talking all about those powerhouse Mets for 2017. They have a lot of scores to settle this year, so it's going to be very interesting nonetheless. Regardless what the Phillies do, and of course I hope they do better in 2017, get a few more wins under their belts, and who knows, maybe it'll be a surprise year. Every now and again you get something like that happen, and maybe it'll be this year for this team. They'll finally come together and gel together as a team. Well, I hope Santa brings all of those great Phillies things to you this holiday season out there as listeners, and I really appreciate you downloading the podcast, taking the time to listen all year long, and I expect to have some nice guests on board for 2017. I'm trying to line them up now for future shows of Phillies Talk Podcast, so we want to wish you all listeners a great holiday season as well, wherever you are. We hope it's a great time for you indeed. Well, here's a clip that I put together from the great Gary Mack. We're talking 2017 NL East. Hope you enjoyed, everyone, and have a great holiday and a happy new year. I'll see you on the other side of the brand new year January 2017 will be the next Phillies Talk podcast. I'll talk to you then.
And I'm back, and I'm joined this week by a familiar voice on Mets Music. It's my good pal and co-host of the Baseball Talk radio show, Rich Baxter, the host of Phillies Talk, and the author and editor of Fighting Phillies blog. Rich, welcome back to Mets Music.
Thank you very much, Gary, and happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you and your listeners.
And the same to you, Rich. And wanted to have you on to talk a little bit about the NL East and winter meetings just closing up. And Washington made some moves. Our teams really sat pretty still during this week. Washington made some moves. Atlanta's been making moves all through the off season, and Miami was pretty quiet this week too. So, what do you think? What does it do to the balance of power in the NL East at all?
Well, a lot of the moves, as you said, were outside of the division. Washington, you could argue, made some moves. Your team, the New York Mets, retained Cespedes and has a great power-packed offensive team for 2017. It's still a race between Washington and New York. I think we're going to have a replay of last year to a certain extent. The Nationals are strong. The Mets remain strong. And Miami, Philadelphia, and Atlanta trying to better themselves, but really not going out there and making a big splash, per se. I don't think either of those teams really has a legitimate chance at making a run for the NL East in 2017. So they're probably content to sit back like the Phillies are right now. They finished 24 games off the pace in 2016, 71 and 91. They just ended up just a little bit better than the Atlanta Braves, and we all know how bad they were last year.
Well, but the Braves had a good second half. They had one of the best records in baseball, so that's something to hang your hat on a little bit there. But, yeah, I'm a little shocked. I was still shaking my head a little bit over the Nationals deal. They sent 3 of their top prospects to the White Sox for Adam Eaton. A little shocked there. And to me, they didn't do what they really needed to do. Okay, they got the center fielder, even though he played a lot of right field last year. He's going to play center. Trey Turner's going to move to shortstop. That's what they want to do, his natural position. So they got that accomplished, but they still don't have a closer. And the top closers now, the 3 of the top closers are off the books. I mean, the only one remaining really is Kenley Jansen, and I don't know if they were even in on that one. It seems like the Dodgers and the Marlins are the 2 teams that are hot for Jansen. I'm sure the Nationals will try to get in now because they really need to have somebody to close. They lost out on Chapman. They lost out on Melanson. They lost out on Sale. So I don't. It almost seems like it was a panic move by Rizzo, the GM of Washington, to bring somebody in, and he went with Eaton, but he gave up. As I said, 3 of their top prospects. 2 of them actually pitched in the majors last year. So a little head scratching. I'm not sure Washington made themselves better, which for us, as fans of other teams in the division, are quite happy about, especially me. But still, from an objective point of view, I don't think they made themselves any better.
Yeah, and a lot of teams are in the mentality of, we're going to do it this year or we're not going to do it. They're not building for years to come, so to speak. They've got a powerhouse team. They've got players in place right now that they think they can win it all. And the Nationals have been bubbling under the last couple of years. They get to a certain point in the season and then they just fall apart. The wheels come off for whatever reason. And maybe the Nationals think that they have to seize the moment, capitalize on what they can for now, and they're not worried too much about prospects that may or may not turn out. I know the Phillies have always been leaning on prospects and, guys that are supposed to be stars to come, so to speak. And a lot of that sensibility has gotten them nowhere. So a team like Washington right now is in a driver's seat. They certainly could repeat as NL East champions for next year. I know the Mets are going to challenge them. I'm still scratching my head. I know the Mets had a lot of injuries towards the end of the season and the middle of the season last year, but they did sort of finish a distant second. And I was very surprised at that. I expected a better race going down towards the end between the Nationals and the Mets. And, maybe we'll see that this year in 2017.
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully, the pitching staff will remain healthy. That was a big part of it last year. The offense wasn't that great other than Cespedes at times. They lost David Wright early. They lost Travis d'Arnaud early. d'Arnaud came back but never really got it started. Wright never came back. They lost Duda early. He came back at the last week of the season. So, not an excuse, people. Don't send me emails on it, but that's the facts. I mean, they lost Matz, they lost DeGrom, they lost Harvey. Three key starters, and they were fortunate, really, that Lugo and Gesellman came in September and late August and really did a fantastic job and really put themselves into a position to make this team this year. And without those guys, they really would have been lost. And, of course, Bartolo Colon, who's now an Atlanta Brave, he's left for Atlanta. But they were a distant second, and they should have been better. But I think eventually the injuries caught up to them, and then they lost the Cabrera for a bit, and then they lost Walker. So it was a combination, and hopefully they can. I would love to see one. I know maybe the NL East and the National League don't want to see it, but I'd like to see a year of this staff together and healthy, and just to see if it lives up to what the promise was. A healthy Harvey for a whole year, a healthy Matz for the whole year. Syndergaard, of course, has to be considered as the ace at this point. A healthy DeGrom and a healthy Wheeler. We forgot that all about Wheeler. Wheeler missed 2 years now, and he says he's fine now. Just like to see them all healthy, to see what they could do. I think it would be good for the game. It would be fascinating to watch a pitching staff with that much talent if they can come through.
Yeah, and as you said, the Mets have three sort of legitimate aces, if you will, with Harvey, DeGrom, and Syndergaard. So they really don't have an excuse. They have their offense in place now with Cespedes. Could be looking at a good 2017. I wish I could say the same for the Phillies.
Well, the Phillies are young. They're very young. They got some good young players, though. They've got Franco at third base is very good, and they finally made the move to at first base and letting Howard go, and I think that's going to pay off for them in the long run. I think he was kind of a
thorn in their side, maybe?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, though he was very popular and he wasn't I don't think you would know better than I, but I don't recall any problems in the clubhouse with him at all. And so he wasn't a bad guy in the clubhouse or anything like that. But I just think they probably, when a guy gets that with that kind of contract, and he gets to be that age, and you're kind of torn in the middle. You're caught. Do you play him? Do you don't play him? We're paying him this money. He did all of these great things for us in the past. And, Joe Girardi had the problem the year before with Jeter. He was slumping a little. Do you keep him in the lineup? It's a tough – how do you sit down a guy like that? It's very difficult, and the Mets went through it in '73 with Willie Mays when he was struggling at that advanced age. So it's really a tough situation to be in, but I think they've made They've made some concessions to that. I do like the Kendricks deal. I think that was a good deal for them. It gives them some veteran leadership. He played a decent left field last year. There's some talent left in him. So I think the Phillies may be a tad better this year. You know, it all comes down to pitching. And that's what the name of the game is.
Yes, it does. And the Phillies retained Jeremy Hellickson for a year. Went to qualifying offer with him, and he couldn't find a deal elsewhere. So he made the decision to stay with the Phillies. He's going to get $17.2 million to stay with them in 2017. And the Phillies are hoping, as you said, Gary, that young nucleus of players sort of starts to get a year older and grows with itself and gets better. At the same time, as you said, Franco will be at third. Tommy Joseph, which to the Phillies was a big surprise on how well he did in the short time that he filled in at first base and platooned with Ryan Howard, who, as you said, was at the end of his Phillies career contract-wise. They could not deal him before they wanted to. I'm sure he would have been out of town a lot sooner if they could have made a deal for him. They could not. So he stayed with the Phillies. There was even talk of outright releasing him in the press anyway. He was doing so poorly that, you know, the papers were speculating, should the Phillies just wave goodbye to him towards the end of the season without even seeing him finish it out. But he did stay on the team, was used sparingly towards the end, and the Phillies even made it a promotion towards the end of the season, the final 3 games, to come on out and honor Ryan Howard, come see him play for the last time. And, you know, that was nice for the fans to be able to do that. But as you said, yeah, Howie Kendricks being added from the LA Dodgers, probably going to be in left field, joining Obadell Herrera out in center. And we're going to get a healthy Aaron Altair back. If you remember, he was going to be real good for the Phillies in 2016. He ended up with an injury and missed most of the season. So, yeah, maybe I've been a little negative on the blog over at fightingphillies.com in the last week or two about no real hot stove action for the Phillies. But, you know, this team just, it gnaws at me that they finished so poorly in 2016 and seemed to be on an elevator going down, even though they had a lot of these guys that were younger and supposed to be getting better. And for some reason, a lot of the wheels came off of this team in 2016, despite the fact that there was a lot of stressing of the fundamentals in baseball and spring training by their manager, Pete Mackanin, in 2016. That's all I heard about. This team is going to be fundamentally sound, and it was anything but that. So maybe things will change in 2017.
Well, you know what I say, Rich, they got a year's experience, and I said this about the Mets pitchers the year before. Those young guys, that DeGrom, Syndergaard, and all of them, they went to the World Series. They got that experience. They got that taste. They got through a playoff run and everything, and now it's 2 playoff runs that most of them had. And these new guys that came, Lugo and Gesellman, went through the playoff run last year in August and September, and you can't buy that. You can't teach that experience. They were able to absorb that and to see that and be in the middle of it. And sometimes that's all you need to really turn it around. So a little bit more seasoning, a little bit more. And, you know, sometimes they say, well, we'll put them down to AAA to get seasoning. But sometimes you can't do any more in AAA. And yet you still need a little seasoning, but it's got to happen at the major league level. And I think a lot of those young guys got that, and then gives them a chance to figure it out. You know, the Phillies themselves, maybe, look, this guy is really not going to make it, so maybe we can move him, or this guy is definitely, we didn't think he was going to make it. I mean, Herrera was really a long shot a couple of years ago with that Rule 5 draft, and he really proved to be pretty good. In fact, they were talking about possibly even moving him to get more pieces in, because they felt he'd be in great demand this year. But I hope they keep him, keep it set, and just develop the young squad and try to add the pitchers when they can.
Yes, indeed. It'll be interesting for the Phillies in 2017, and I'm looking forward to that rivalry in the NL East with all the clubs again as we start up the new season in just, 115 days to opening day.
And it's going to go fast, my friend, and we'll be talking about it every week on the Baseball Talk radio show, as well as Rich will be talking about it on his Phillies Talk podcast that you can find on baseballtalkradio.com. And, of course, Mets Musings, you know where to find this, metsmusings.com, and you'll be getting it every week. Hopefully, we're going to take a couple of weeks off with the holidays coming up, but we're going to go as much as we can all winter, so you have baseball talk to fall back on, so you're not going to miss anything. Well, Rich, I want to thank you for taking a couple of minutes and coming on the show. We just got done with one show, and now we're doing another one together. So always great talking to you. Thanks for coming on. We'll talk during the season.
Always a great time, Gary, and happy holidays to the listeners out there of Mets Musings and Phillies Talk Podcast as well.